Back in early 2021, it was announced that Cold Steel was going to get an animated series, and this was even more intriguing when considering what it was going to be based on. Stated to begin in January 2023, the title of the series was eventually finalised as The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel Northern War, which, as the name suggests, would cover the Northern War that occurred between Cold Steel 2 and Cold Steel 3, an event that till this point we had only heard about through recollective scenes in the third game. And though I'm always wary of anime based on games, I wanted to give this one a fair shake. And I mean, sure, even though the outcome was already set in stone and the war itself wasn't exactly very long, there was just so much they could work with. The setting itself in Northumbria was a goldmine. You had the dependence on Jaegers, the salt pail incident, the unique governmental situation. How could this ever be bad? Well, I watched all 12 episodes over the past 2 weeks, and we're gonna go through every single one of them. In episode 1, we're introduced to our main protagonist, Lavian Winslet, the granddaughter of one of the heroes of the Northumbrian Revolution 27 years prior. She's only just been instated to the main Northern Jaeger Corps and is on a mission back to Haliask, the capital city. On the way, they see a village under attack. Lavi goes against orders and takes out a Granoa by herself, thus saving the villagers. Back in Haliask, she is reprimanded and forced to instruct junior Jaegers as punishment. We also get some background on Northumbria, the salt pail phenomenon, and the revolution, which later sets the stage for a new character, Rogan, a well-respected Jaeger in his own right, to call for a new revolution following the annexation of Crossbell into the Empire. He feels that the events in Crossbell will eventually bleed over to Northumbria, and that the current governments are inadequate to deal with it. As far as first episodes go, it's fine. It gives us the background of our new setting, introduces some key characters, and sets up the plot. It does what it needs to do. In episode 2, we kick off with a familiar sight, the inauguration of Governor General Rufus following the annexation of Crossbell. The bigwigs of Northumbria are all gathered together, watching this and deciding what to do. We're also shown the last hero of the revolution, that's being Glark, and the vice captain of the Northern Jaegers, Jaina. The scene then pans to the training camp that Lavi has been assigned to following her actions in the previous episode. We also see the introduction of our side characters, those being Asaria, Marty, and Talion. Lavi has an instructional bout with Talion that he lets her win, followed immediately by some chaos, and it's here you'll also get to see the first real problem in Northern War. While the art direction is okay, if not a little bland, the animation quality is clearly lacking, and that's made especially clear during action sequences. When any sort of movement is involved, it's like the characters are floating to their destinations rather than in some fluid motion. If it's not clear in this sequence, then it sure as hell is here. Look at it! It doesn't even look like he's holding it back, he's just standing there while a CG truck flails around. Yes, I understand this was always going to be low budget, I wasn't expecting animation quality at the level of a Haikyuu or an Akebi Sailor uniform, but even knowing its budgetary constraints, this just feels so uninspired. Take Kill la Kill for example, which was also known for having a low budget. It at least had the art style that worked in tandem with the animation to create something pleasing on the eye. It had problems too, but the animators clearly put the effort in to make it work. Northern War is just so mid in comparison, and it never really improves outside of a small sequence in the next episode. So following this little event, which turned out to be a driver being manipulated by some unknown force, the truck crashes into a relay tower due to Lavi's actions, meaning she is once again in trouble. But this time she is instead given a mission along with Talion, Asaria, and Marty. That mission is to get intel on the mysterious hero of the Empire, the Ashen Chevalier. So not too bad so far, right? Buckle yourselves in. From this point, the group infiltrates the Erebonian Empire in order to carry out their mission, first arriving in Ordis for episode 3 as undercover guests to a party. Lavi and Talion are on the outside while Marty and Asaria are in the party proper. But Lavi gets bored and decides to take a look around Ordis itself to, I quote, check out the Empire's current situation. Yeah, I ain't buying that. What I will say is that I like the use of music. A lot of the songs are taken directly from the game, and it's no different here where we're treated to the theme of Ordis from Cold Steel 3. While some may feel out of place at points, it's a nice link to the main series and you can't go wrong with a Falcom OST. After a thrilling chase sequence where Talion is continually shouting out Lavi's actual name despite being spies, we're gonna get to that again soon, they come upon a sideshow depicting the Ashen Chevalier. Remember where I said the animation does get a bit better for a small sequence? Here it is. No joke, this little side story has better animation than the entirety of the show. And look, Mishy's here. But what they do to poor Mishy is criminal, both literally and figuratively. In this series, Mishy is part of a terrorist group led by a clown who's planning out some act of revenge, and the group is found by Lavi just before the big showdown. I'm sorry, Mishy, they did you bad there. So the clown infiltrates the party via airship, but is followed by Lavi, who surely is gonna take this guy to the cleaners. Wrong. She gets her ass handed to her. And it's not like this guy is an ex-military commander or something, he's just a dude from a travelling troupe who got pissed off with the nobility. So you're telling me, regardless of being a rookie, that the battle-hardened Northern Jaeger, who excelled at training, who got into the full corps at a very young age, who was hailed as the second coming of Sarah Vallenstein by some, and who literally took out a Granola about, what, 2 episodes ago, gets her ass taken out by a clown. It is so ridiculous. The whole premise of this episode is stupid from the clown onwards. It is so ridiculous that all you can do is laugh here. That is the only feasible response. And unironically, I partly forgive it, as it's a representation of the ludicrous side quests you can find in the games. Let's be real though, it doesn't need to exist. You have far less time available in an anime, you cannot be wasting it on stuff like this unless it has a distinct purpose. It is funny though. On the other side, something that isn't amusing is Lavi herself. She's just not a good protagonist. That's apparent even 3 episodes in. It feels like she's been written by 4 different people. There's no clear archetype that makes up her character. I'm not sure if she's meant to be the silent but stoic type, passionate, playful. It's like the writers took everything they thought would make Lavi endearing, but without any consideration given to cohesion. And this melee is a great example of that on the outside. Sometimes she takes out a group of experienced Jaegers alone and is jumping across rooftops, other times she gets wrecked by Ronald McDonald. Anyway, Lavi wins because of her loaded Glock and reaps the rewards. Let me just remind you here, they are meant to be undercover agents. Yet during this episode alone, they have made a massive scene, called out their real names several times and made no progress on their main objective. And look, they're already being monitored. So that brings us nicely to episode 4. Off screen, the team have gone to Raquel, Rua and Heimdall. We also got to see some familiar faces pop up during these sequences, which was nice to see. Now they're on their way to Ymir, because it's rumoured as the hometown of the Ashen Chevalier, so where better to get some information? Let me reiterate, we are going to Ymir to get information on the Ashen Chevalier. Got it? Right. When they arrive, they decide to get in the hot springs first, but oh no, the source of the water is frozen over, so they volunteer to sort it out. Okay, a little off track there, but whatever, they can get this done quickly if they work together. Psych! Only Lavi and Issaria go to check it out. Marty and Talion literally spend the entirety of this episode digging holes. What are they, Shia LaBeouf? So Lavi and Issaria find the problem. It turns out to be this blue pom, and they go back to have the quintessential bathing scene. With their souls cleansed and the problem sorted, they move on to the next stage of their journey. And all's well that ends well. What were they doing again? Find information on the Ashen Chevalier. Oops. Also, Campanella makes an appearance here. It appears that Jaina is working with him on behalf of Glark for some master plan. Episode 5 comes along and they're on their way to Berea Heart, but the train track is busted by some wanted monster. Lavi falls into the waterways below due to this, but surprise, she's saved by Lady Killer 101, Reen Schwarzer, who is on a mission to take out this monster. Altina's here as well. They start to look for a way out, but not before settling down for a bit of fishing in poo water, and then eating it. Reen and Lavi also have a moment or two. Eventually they get to a crossroads where Reen says he wants to help others, it sort of resonates with Lavi, she helps him, they beat the monster and get back to the surface, and lo and behold, Reen gets another addition to the harem, and he doesn't even need to say anything this time. Issaria is all over him from sight alone. Before they can call it a day though, more monsters appear, prompting Reen to call on Valamar to take them all out. Shock and horror, Reen is the Ashen Chevalier they've been looking for, and now Lavi is conflicted because he's so nice, but now he's also their enemy. What will they ever do? With that, the mission's now done and they decide to go back to Haliask. By the way, Reen already knows their Jaegers based on intel from Altina back in episode 3. Masters of Disguise. In other words, they spent 4 episodes having a little pleasure trip around Erebonia only to have the whole goal of this excursion drop into their lap. It didn't even come through their efforts. And this is where I want to bring in another major issue of this anime. The pacing is just straight up crap. It's either too fast, which we'll talk about later, or it's far too slow with no meaningful payoff. For instance, episodes 2 to 5 had the main objective of finding intel on Reen. Right, so you cut out episodes 3 and 4 for immediately. There's nothing of interest there outside of some bare bones character development. I don't think you can even call it that. Episode 2 had the setup and reasoning for this mission, while Episode 5 had the encounter and completion of the goal. Take a few relevant parts from each, combine the two into one episode with a semblance of cohesion, and voila, you've kept the narrative flowing at a good pace, giving yourself 3 more episodes to focus on the war itself. So with the mission done, the gang are now on their way back to Northumbria to relay the information, but they have to stop in Celtic first. Now for all my harping on the previous episodes, this one is actually pretty good. It starts with Lecter, Milliam and Altina confronting the Jaegers and revealing that they have known about their mission from the start. Well, duh, as we've seen many times before, they're not exactly adept at covert operation. Lecter also sheds a light on the events of Celtic during Cold Steel 2 and reveals that one of the members who took part in that atrocity was Marty himself. Actual character development, guys. With that done, the Ironblood trio look to apprehend the group, with Milliam and Altina taking point, though their teamwork leaves a lot to be desired. Now even though it's fairly comedic to see this, I think this is a good representation of the relationship the two have at this point. While Milliam likes her sister, Altina doesn't exactly reciprocate those feelings, and it's natural to think that their chemistry as a duo is well off during this part of the story. Another good point is the action, or should I say inaction, of Lecter. He doesn't show his true fangs until the later events of Cold Steel 3 and 4, so it makes sense that he's holding back here and just letting the other two do the work. It's a show of continuity that makes sense. Good on you, anime. So because of the bumbling duo, the group are able to escape to Lunaria Nature Park, where they quiz Marty further on the events of Celtic, and it also brings up an interesting point about the juxtaposition between older and younger Northern Jaegers, those who are forced to take a job just to live, as opposed to the current crop who may have more of a choice in the matter, suggesting that the role of a Jaeger is more than just the reward of Mira, which resonates with Lavi and Talion. Eventually they're found and Marty acts as decoy to let the others escape. It's also a good thing for Milliam and Altina that he has Stormtrooper aim and he's quickly taken into custody. Episode 7 starts with a flashback of a familiar scene to series veterans, that being a young Sarah Vallenstein against the Nidhogg Corps and the death of Colonel Vallenstein. We're also given the revelation that it appears Vlad Winslet, Lavi's grandfather, was the one who killed him. Fast forward and we see the remaining members of the group returning to Haliask and reporting into Jaina, who has decided that she will not look to rescue Marty after his capture, something that hits Talion quite hard, who's now riddled with guilt. The scene then jumps to Heimdall, where we see a couple more familiar faces, Marcus and Elliot chilling out with Reen as they remonstrate on the role of the Ashen Chevalier. This is an alright scene. Whoa, hold up. What is Marcus drinking there? Last I checked he was all about coffee. No connoisseur worth his salt would drink tea just to keep up appearances. By the way, Marty's fine and makes a deal with Lecter. Lavi and Talion have another fight, but this time Lavi wins fair and square. Talion cries and then she eventually overhears Glark mentioning her grandfather, in particular the fact that he framed him for the death of Colonel Vallenstein. At that point in time, the Northern Jaegers were split into two factions, with Vlad representing one side and Glark the other. Vallenstein, however, had the charisma to unite both. With him dead, neither had the influence to pull in the other side, so Vlad apparently made the choice to take the fall to keep the group united. Now, I know what some people will say, that this development is stupid and doesn't make any sense, but I'm going to defend it. In a bubble, sure, it doesn't really make much sense, but there's one key element here that makes the development work in my opinion, and that's time. Glark himself stated that while talks could have sorted the situation out eventually, Northumbria would have been destroyed during that period. As such, when little time is available, it means the solution becomes more desperate. This here is a desperate solution to the problem. It's not exactly rational, but they don't have the convenience of time to think about rationality. The only thing I would raise an eyebrow at is how quickly Lavi believes the man who openly admits to framing her grandfather, even if it was by his own wishes apparently. He could easily be lying, but once again I look at the situation in time. At this point, a minister has come in and stated that Erebonia are looking for reparations for the attack on Celtic, so everyone knows they're boned if they don't sort something out quickly. Again, a desperate situation calls for a desperate measure, in which case Lavi agrees to help Glark in uniting the populace in order to defend Northumbria. Talion on the other hand goes to Jaina to assist her directly, which is a bit weird considering she was the one who shut down a rescue attempt to get Marty back, but whatever. In episode 8, the Northern Jaeger Corps are made aware of the reparation demands from Erebonia, at which point Glark shows the secret weapon that is under their control to gain victory, those being archaisms from episode 4 and the controller given to him by the society that makes that possible. He also brings out Lavi and introduces her as the granddaughter of the hero Vlad Winslet, pumping their morale up even more. But at this time, isn't Vlad's name sullied because he was framed for the death of Colonel Vallenstein? Surely his name has no weight whatsoever. If anything, it would get people to hate Lavi. Anyway, in the meeting that follows, Glark pretty much shows his true motives. He doesn't want to defend Northumbria, he just wants to take over the entire continent. What a surprise! He's a power-hungry git who wants glory. Good luck doing that with some archaisms at your side when Erebonia has soul darts and a divine knight. However, for now, he decides he will wait for the Empire to attack and then retaliate. Rogan, who is also at the meeting, firmly goes against this. His plan is to mount an offensive on the Empire and take the initiative. So in other words, both of them have dumb ideas. Rogan soon after stages a coup to wrest control away from the government. Glark in the meantime is so dumb that he even remonstrates on his ultimate goal with Jaina, despite acknowledging that he knows she has a plot lined up herself. He lays out all his cards on the table and just goes, "Meh, what are you gonna do?" And would you look at that, he's been poisoned as a result. Oh my bloody head. Now my notes for episode 9 say nothing happens, and it's true, barely anything of note occurs. Northumbria is now under martial law following the coup. The true puppet master is out there somewhere, of course we already know who it is. They refuse to pay the reparations, so Aurelia gets ready to kick ass. Lavi wants to break into the palace to get the device that controls the archaisms back. She fails, but not before doing this weird fourth wall break. I mean look, she literally glances the other way when responding to this dude and sticks her tongue out. What is she? So after sounding the alarm and dumping her maid outfit that she got from somewhere, she goes back down into the sewers, gets shot by Talion who intercepts her and falls into the water. The only good thing that happens in this episode is that Altina gets a head pat from someone other than Reen and hates it. Right, episode 10. This is the Lavi development episode. It wouldn't surprise me if the writers noted it down as that when they drew up the script. So it turns out that Talion actually let Lavi go, but he still shoots her and almost ends her life. He causes her to fall in poo water with a gunshot wound. How she didn't get infected, I'll never know. And people saying, oh, he has to shoot her or they're both dead. He hides when the pursuers catch up. They don't even know he did it. All he had to do was shoot the ground and let Lavi jump in the water. That's it. Why does this boy toy have to shoot her as well? And it means nothing, because when Lavi eventually ends up in her home village to recuperate, they go there anyway to make sure she's dead. So in other words, this smooth-brained donkey shot her for no reason whatsoever. What is wrong with these characters? The rest of the episode is all about Lavi remembering what it means to be a hero and that her true goal is to protect everyone in her village and blah blah blah. Thanks very much. Let me remind you, 2 episodes left and the war hasn't even started yet. Issaria is also there to find Lavi. Okay, episode 11. Lavi and Issaria make their way back to Haliask while the Erebonian offensive begins, but they get captured. In the meantime, the offensive is blocked with the help of the Archaism, so Aurelia calls off the advance for a week. We do get to see Lloyd and Risha and Crossbell and Estelle and Joshua and Ruan to show the effects of the war elsewhere, so that's pretty cool, though doesn't really have any bearing on the events in Northumbria. When they get back to Haliask, it looks like the Archaisms have gone haywire and attack them on sight. They destroy them, infiltrate the city, some of their group die because the water's poisoned, they make it to the diet building, and Lavi has a heart-to-heart with Rogan. Jaina is somewhere else with some Jaegers, and she also has this weird knife that seems to have importance, but it's never mentioned again. The discussion between Rogan and Lavi is broadcast all over the city in secret, and yet somehow Rogan can't hear this over the loudspeakers. The people hear Rogan's words, unite under him, and Lavi now has one final goal, to take out the true mastermind in Jaina, but before she can do that, Reen appears with Valimar and it cuts off just before the supposed one-on-one. Here we are, the last episode, episode 12, and I'm going to say it now. This one here is the worst of the bunch because it encapsulates everything that is wrong with this anime in a 25-minute period. So, yeah, enjoy it. The episode begins with Reen and Lavi having a 7-second duel. Reen gets cut, and then Lavi saying she needs Reen's help, who reveals he's only there to evacuate the citizens. Lavi in the meantime is going into the nearby forest where she's learned about the factory creating the Archaisms and aims to stop it. Suddenly the Archaisms in the city lose control, but with a rendition of Sword of Biting Gale, Marty saves the day. Reen gets into Valimar, activates the Ogre power, Sarah appears to do an EX art, which is a nice callback. By the way, that's the only time we see her during this fight, and Lavi along with Marty make their way back to the factory. She gets in and finds Jaina, who then spawns a final boss arena for the last showdown. And this little sequence here, where Jaina explains the whole situation, is so ludicrous. If you don't laugh, you cry. She starts spouting nonsensical dialogue about heroes and clowns, reveals that the Jaegers who are with her in episode 11 are the core for the Archaisms, so Lavi has to kill them to stop more from being produced. But if she does that, it will bring forth forth one of two calamities, a silver or golden curse that will either blight the land of Northumbria or curse the newborns. And the core of this, I'm guessing, is this weird slinky monster above them, I don't know. And you want to know why Amelia from ReZero is doing this? For shits and giggles. I am not kidding. That is her motivation for everything. I give up. I give up! So white-haired bitch leaves Lavi to mull over her choices, Reen loses control of his power, I'm assuming he's the one who's bringing forth this calamity, and maybe this whole ritual is a catalyst for him losing control, I don't know, it's never explained. Talion slits her throat, yep, that's the end of her, she pretty much gets no background whatsoever, she's not an enforcer, she's not a member of the old royal family of Northumbria, she's just a mad bitch who dies unceremoniously. Lavi and Talion team up to stop the calamity, or whatever, Reen passes out from his power and the battle ends. Now these closing moments, I mean I'm already drained enough, but it couldn't help but give one last disappointment. So this event here, where Reen loses control of his power, it effectively traumatizes him to not use it in Cold Steel 3 unless he needs to. But there doesn't appear to be any consequence from him losing control, he doesn't go on a rampage or anything of the sort. Now maybe the trauma comes from the potential of what it means, and that Reen psychologically believes that losing control in the future could lead to something bad happening, hence why he chooses to not use it, and I can kind of get that, but the bigger issue for me is how they don't even give any nod to Altina during this point, or Sarah. For Sarah, this is her home country, this is the place that she grew up in, of course you're going to give her something surely, but no, like I say, you don't even see her after that little appearance she makes. And as for Altina, this here is a massive part of her development too. It's where the human emotion starts to surface. Even just a little JPEG image of her watching over Reen while he's passed out would have been enough. That would have been a satisfactory link to the development we see in the later games, but it's not even touched on. And you know what? I don't even know why I'm surprised anymore. So all the characters decide to go their own ways, we get a few more cameos that have no meaning whatsoever outside of fan service, Lavi goes off on a journey of her own, and so ends the Northern War anime. And that's it. It's done. The actual war of Northern War got maybe 3 minutes of airtime, if that. Regardless of how quickly the war ends, this feels so shallow. What a waste of 5 hours. Like, this is a classic case of expecting nothing and still being disappointed. Is this honestly the best they could do? Like, did a group of writers actually get together around a table and think that this here was okay? Okay, let me just do my final thoughts on it. First of all, is it a good anime? Good anime. Well, if this 12-episode synopsis doesn't give you an idea, then let me answer it with a question. Let's say someone who has no background with Trails was looking for an action, fantasy-based anime to watch. They had no idea of a specific show, just that it has to have those genres attached to it. They then input that into a random anime generator and are given the Northern War as a suggestion. Do you think they would watch it all the way through? Hell no. 99 times out of 100, they're dropping it within 2 episodes. It's convoluted, it's confusing, the majority of newcomers will be lost in an hour. So that begs the question, can you enjoy it as a Trails fan? Maybe, but the vast majority of the enjoyment comes from the references and cameos, the knowledge we already know. There is virtually no enjoyment to be had for the story specific to Lavi and the group introduced here, nor does it add anything meaningful to the current lore. It just fails with nearly everything it sets out to do. It's got horrible pacing, confusing character arcs, lack of payoff, a strange story structure, underwhelming antagonists, lackluster animation. If you take the cameos away, what do you have left? And it wouldn't surprise me if they did it like this because of the Northern War mobile title, so they want to keep it sort of open-ended to feed into that game, but this ain't gonna get anyone hyped for the release, I'm certain of that. Apparently these characters are anime only, and I hope it stays like that outside of maybe Marty and Asaria. Lavi has got to be one of the worst protagonists I've seen in any form of media. She's just so bland and lacking in direction. By the time her development episode comes along, I still have no clue what their aim is with her story, and the others are even worse. The only thing I can praise here is the opening song. That's a banger, and I hope the singer Chisato Akita gets more roles going forward. She did a great job. My only regret is that her name is tied to this absolute mess. In short, I don't recommend this to anyone, not even mega fans. Heck, I'm a mega fan. You would think I would find anything to latch onto to give it a pass, but there's nothing. There's actually nothing there. Ream's recollection of the events in Cold Steel 3 does a better job than this. If you want to see what it's all about, just play like up till chapter 1 in that game. I'm 100% serious in that. And despite my thoughts on this anime, I do hope that this isn't the nail in the coffin for anime based on the Trail series, because I do think it has potential. I do think that there is a gem yet to be unearthed. But Cold Steel Northern War is not it. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe for more JRPG content, and consider joining my Patreon if you're interested. Peace.